Good Wednesday evening, present tense, take 3. Having more issues with my dog. I don't know what it is about this platform, but he's like, you're speaking, you're on a camera, I need to interrupt you. But anyway, I think we're good. Okay, so tonight's video is on part 1 of what I hope is going to be 2 and not 3 series of trauma bonding. So this is a topic that I think that I mentioned to you that is so huge. I've devoted like at least 3 weeks of it to my abuse recovery coaching program. So what I'm going to try to do here is give it a good introduction today for video number 1. I want to just give you like a definition of what trauma bonding is, and then I want to give you like 6 signs that you're in it. Okay, that's going to be video 1 today. Tomorrow we're going to talk more about what to do about it. Okay, and I'm hoping I can get this done in 2 videos, but just it's really hard to, this is a huge topic. It's really hard to break it down into 2 videos. So I'm going to try my best because I love you guys. And when I get a request in this group, I like to honor it. So anyway, so trauma bonding. I mean, if you think about the term, so it follows this abuse cycle that we are so used to when we are in an abusive relationship. Trauma bonding is not something that goes away once you're out of the relationship. It requires a lot of work to get yourself out of it once you've left the relationship. And when you're in it, it can be quite toxic. And it's an insane thing to go through. So kind of the definition behind trauma bonding is that this idea of abuse plus trauma is what defines love. Okay. So it's kind of similar to an addiction. Okay. So you get really used to the cycle of what this loving relationship is like. And in that cycle is the normal things that you're going to see in the abuse cycle or the the post-abuse cycle, which are going to be starting out as the person being incredibly charming, and then there's going to be a request for something, there's going to be something you're doing wrong, there's going to be a retaliation, then there's going to be a recovery period. So it follows that same kind of abuse cycle that you might be used to if you've been in an abusive relationship. Trauma bonding is very, very akin to, it's very common in a narcissistic relationship, okay? Trauma bonding used to be really associated with something called Stockholm Syndrome. And I would imagine a lot of you guys have heard the term, but maybe you don't know what it is. But Stockholm Syndrome is basically when, like, if someone gets kidnapped or something and they fall in love with their captor, okay? Because there's this emotional bond that's created, and they end up, even like defending their captor because this cycle of abuse has gone on for so long that them defending their captor and caring about them is a result of it. Now, since then, since this idea has been brought up, a few years ago, it has been determined that Stockholm Syndrome and trauma bonding are not exactly the same way, but they share some traits. They share some of the same traits. So what we do know is that they do kind of share the same theme of mirroring this kind of like emotional bond with someone who is a perpetrator, okay, for lack of a better word. So trauma bonding is a very natural reaction to abuse. It is something that if you've been in an abusive relationship, you're likely going to experience trauma bonding. And if you're out of an abusive relationship and you never knew about it, I guarantee you've probably experienced this. So trauma bonding is basically an unhealthy attachment when you're in a relationship that's abusive. So oftentimes in these kind of relationships, there's this like intermittent like reinforcement that goes on, where something that looks like love then ends up being abuse, okay? And it happens over and over and over. And the thing is, these people that we're in this relationship with who are abusive can look so damn charming. They can act and look so damn charming that when we go through this cycle of devaluation and we're going through the whole abuse cycle, we don't even realize that we're in it, because soon after we're back to that charming wonderfulness of where we like hung the moon, right? So that's why it's easy to kind of fall into. All right. The brain also, like I mentioned with addiction, the brain gets really addicted to that cycle of pleasing the narcissist. So if you are used to being doted on or being told you're wonderful or you're beautiful and all of this in the beginning, or this person's doing so many things for you, and then we're going around this devaluation cycle, our brains end up concentrating on that part that was a really, really good, and that's what we remember. That is trauma bonding. And you may think it sounds ridiculous, like, well, why couldn't one realize that this devaluation is going on? It's not that simple, you guys. It's not that simple. Now, I do understand that it may seem simple, but I got to tell you, this is a very quick cycle in the beginning. When the trauma bonding begins, it's very quick. So we end up kind of explaining away a lot of these red flags that show up after the charming, wonderful cycle has begun. We end up explaining away a lot of those red flags. And each time we go around that cycle, it gets more and more intense. So whatever you have accepted in an earlier cycle has now gotten just a smidgen worse. So if you can imagine that it's gotten just a smidgen worse and you're going around this cycle so quickly, maybe the love bombing stage of it has, maybe it's lasted the longest, and maybe the devaluation stage and all this other crap that goes on in that stage and retaliation, maybe that's really quick in the beginning. So the majority of the time together is loving. But as time goes on, that cycle slows down. There's less time in that charming stage, okay? And there's more time spent in that devaluation stage and in that retaliation stage. That's how you get hooked. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter your childhood upbringing. I don't want to get way too into this. Yes, it matters. If you grew up knowing that something like this was really familiar and you grew up in a not so great, childhood environment, yes, it matters, because this belief inside of you of how to interact with people has already been kind of laid, right? It's already, the foundation's been laid. But that doesn't mean that if you didn't, or you did grow up in that you're necessarily going to fall for it in the future. But you're more prone to it if you did have an issue in childhood. Anyway, the brain gets really addicted to this cycle because that time frame of when they're so good and things are so good and you can please them, in the beginning, when that is a longer part of the cycle, or when it comes back for just a little bit of time, you get almost like a high from that, okay, if you will. Like you live for those times when that top of the cycle where it's so good is here. And when that top of the cycle that is so good becomes shorter and shorter, and these other periods become longer and longer, by the time you realize that something is wrong, you're already living for the top of that cycle when you get your good reinforcement. Okay, so that's why it's a lot like addiction. So I just want to give you 6 signs that you might still be in a trauma bonded relationship. Okay, that maybe you haven't started your healing journey, just so you can reflect and think to yourself, okay, where am I in this process? All right, so now that I've kind of defined how trauma bonding works, let's go into these. So 6 signs you can look at. I'm sure there's more than this, but these are the 6 that I've studied. So first sign, you're holding hope or space for a person to return to you. Okay, so you've been discarded, but you're holding this hope or this open space for someone to return to you. You might realize that some days are really good and you're feeling like, screw him or her, and I'm not ever going back to this. And other days you find yourself pining for this relationship, much like you might a drug in an addiction, okay? So as a result, you might hold off on making a major change in your life, like a job change or moving somewhere, or even making a decision to be alone and work on yourself. Or if you were interested in dating, you might even hold off on that in case this person's coming back. That is a sign that you are still in a trauma bonded relationship. The second sign is still falling for that love bombing, because like I said, anything that started while you were in the abusive relationship is going to carry over when you're out of it. So if you're still falling for that love bombing, it seems really genuine to you. You feel like you understand that they really miss you, right? And they're saying all this. But if you can tell yourself, I know they abused me, but yet I'm still feeding into this, you're likely still in the trauma bond. Number 3, making excuses for them. Now, we've all done this. But it's common when you're in the relationship with them, but what about when you get out? What about when you get out of it and you've actually left and you've actually made that decision to be like, I am out of this. But yet you find yourself still not really giving up on the relationship and you're making excuses for them. That makes it harder for you. It's really common at the end when you're in the beginning of being in the end of the relationship, okay? We make all these excuses for them. Well, they went through this, they blah, 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 their childhood, right? So when you make these excuses, you have to realize, first of all, that you're making excuses. Second of all, this is completely natural that you're doing this. But if you can remind yourself that everybody does have the similar reaction once the love bombing starts again, just to recognize that this is abuse, and it has all the signs of abuse. Okay, so remind yourself of that. All right, I want to get into more of the what to do about it in my next video, but I couldn't resist there. Also, if you're taking responsibility for your own reactions to however they treated you, guys, I can relate to this so well. But whatever the narcissist, however they treated you, whatever they did to you when you were in the relationship, I know that after you leave, you start saying, well, I could have done this, I could have done that, I should have done this, I should have reacted this way. Well, here, I'm going to totally help you out here and tell you that however you reacted, whether you blew up in their face, whether you threw something across the room, whether you kicked them, whether you shouted at them, those are all normal reactions to being abused. And where we get ourselves caught up in this mess is where we think, I was part of the problem because I reacted like a crazy person. I'm going to debunk this for you right now. However you reacted to being abused, don't worry about it. It's normal. It's 100% normal. It took me 5 years to figure that out, and a lot of counseling and a lot of personal development. But however you reacted to being abused, it doesn't make you the problem. We're going to talk about that more tomorrow. Number 4. If you still feel energetically or spiritually connected to this person, like they're your family, or like you just can't imagine your life without them, okay? These lines of what is real and what you feel get really blurred, right? They can totally pull your strings. You hang on their every word. You try to distance yourself from them, but you keep finding yourself being triggered emotionally by whatever you see them doing, or whenever they call you up, you jump and you let them come over. That is another sign that you are still in the trauma bond. And we're going to talk tomorrow about being intentionally detached from that. Number 5, do you spend a lot of time thinking about them? I did when I first got out of my relationship. I probably spent the first 3 years thinking about what he was doing. It's good to recall some things, the good and the bad. It's good to recall these things. It helps us heal. But if those thoughts constantly make you hurt and make you feel terrible, you're in a trauma bond. If those thoughts aren't helping you realize why you left, you're in a trauma bond. And we'll talk tomorrow about what we can do about that as well. The 6th and last thing, if you feel like you're totally subscribed to their reality, you see and know that this is unhealthy, but yet you're still buying into their fake reality. That's trauma bond. That's about all I got to say about that 6th one. Guys, if you're early out of this relationship, if you're early out, if you just broke up with a narcissist, please don't be down on yourself. Please don't. This is all normal. Okay? This is all a normal reaction. Pardon my dog. I might have to post 2 videos if it's too loud to see someone outside, but this is all a normal reaction. Okay? If you are years out, all it means is you haven't embarked on your healing journey yet, and you need help or some assistance. Okay, that's all it means. If you're early on, you're going to experience this a lot more. And I will tell you right now, this is what you can do. And I'll talk more about what you can do tomorrow. Keep watching my videos. Learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can about trauma bonding. Learn as much as you can about abuse and narcissistic abuse especially. Because if you've been in a trauma bonded relationship, you were probably with a narcissist. Don't be ashamed. You're going to feel ashamed. If you feel ashamed, talk to me. Okay? And remember, healing takes time. You're going to have people in your family. I still have people in my family saying, why are you still talking about this? And I say, because it's still relevant. When you have kids with someone, you're going to still talk about this. You're still going to experience it. And just because I'm a coach and I'm a mentor and I can help people with this doesn't mean that I'm not still triggered, right? And it also doesn't mean that I figured it all out. This is a lifelong journey to healing. And I can tell you right now, no one should ever tell you where you should be on your healing journey, ever. Because as long as you take the time and you invest your time into healing, you're doing the best you can, and don't worry about it. Focus on your healing. Work with me. I will be launching a program that I would absolutely love for you to be in, and I'll talk about that down the road. But also, reach out to me anytime as a friend. Guys, I get this stuff. I've been there. I am on the outskirts of it. Am I ever triggered? Oh yeah, I get triggered. But for the most part, I have done the work and I have put together the resources that I need for myself and that I can give other people to help them through this thing. So this video, yes, it's very long. It's very long because trauma bonding is a huge topic. This is part 1. I will come on tomorrow with part 2. I am hoping it's only 2 parts. I mean, for your, I hope it's not too long for you. I thoroughly enjoy making these videos. So for me, I do not mind making a 3rd part, but I hope for you, this is not too long-winded and that you got something out of this, and I'll probably have another 20-minute video tomorrow and possibly a 3rd one. But I hope it helps you. And just remember, you're not alone with this. I've been there. I still catch myself in the throes of trauma bonding, but I'm not in it anymore. And I can help you get out of it. All right, guys, have a fabulous rest of your evening. Thanks for listening. Good night.